I think let us start the program. Let all the people, EC members and all other people will be joining gradually. And I welcome you all to this CSI venue meeting, though it is happening in Calcutta or Kolkata, the city of joy. And the thing is that we are really happy that the hybrid conference that is going to happen in the month of December 2020 is going to be a real show from the CSI side. And I am really hopeful that all of you will join the meeting physically more than virtually. So with these few words, I thank Dr. P.P. Mohanan for accepting the invitation to speak on this hypertension topic, that is hypertension management, which is guideline mediated hypertension management in COVID scenario. So over to Dr. P.P. Mohanan, who is the scientific committee chairman of 2020 CSI, as well as the president-elect.
Thank you, President. Anyway, my job today is not to give you any idea about the guideline mediated management, because it'll be overkill if I start talking to you about guideline directed medical treatment of hypertension. I will touch on basically on the confusion caused by COVID and hypertension and some of this management. I will touch on that, and then we'll take up whatever thing. Greetings of the World Hypertension Day. As Soumitra mentioned, today is the postponed World Hypertension Day. If you remember, May 17th was the conventionally the World Hypertension Day. It has been changed. So measure your blood pressure, control it, live longer. That is the... So what has changed? Now, if you look at this particular slide, you could see that the Spanish flu occurred in 1918, and now we have another pandemic. And what essentially is the difference? People are dying, and of course, not to the tune that possibly people have got killed during the Spanish flu. But the fortunate thing at 1918 was you don't need to treat hypertension in 1918, because the idea of hypertension treatment came much, much later in the late 40s or 50s. And there was no confusion at that time, at least, in treating hypertension. The COVID timeline, every one of you know. I have not taken the entire timeline of COVID, but this is what is till March. What's happening? Okay, so December. You know this story. Now, this story has been there every time in the media, in the press. So our interest lies in some of this data, which came initially from China and soon followed it up from the Europe, especially Italy and Lombardy especially. So who is most at risk from coronavirus? And as you could see here, it's basically the elderly who has the brunt of COVID mortality. But on the right side, as you could see here, cardiovascular disease, those who harbors that also have a higher mortality and morbidity. We know the death rate is the overall death rate is 2.3, and in a healthy individual, young individual, COVID death was supposed to be less than 1%. But those with underlying heart disease, those with diabetes, those with chronic respiratory illnesses, hypertension. Look at that. See, hypertension. This is our interest. Those who have hypertension developing COVID, hypertensive doesn't have any proclivity to develop COVID. That is not there. But when COVID attacks a hypertensive guys, the percentage of people who develop mortality seems almost 6 times high. And this was the beginning. This was the beginning of a big debate. Now, when the last respiratory medicine published for the first time from China, of course, the clinical cause and outcome of critically ill patients with COVID-19 from Wuhan. That was a data of about 710 patients, in whom about 52 were critically ill. And out of that, significant percentage died. And look at that. Now, out of the 52 patients, about 61%, 32 died. And many amongst them were hypertensives. And soon after following this, in the same volume, we have a letter to the editor part from one funny named guy. I forgot his name. And he was proposing this theory of dangers of ACE inhibitors and ARB. And his theory, he proposed it, and there were many followers, naturally, is that treating hypertension with ACE inhibitors or ARB is one of the reason why hypertensive COVID patient has more than 6 times the death. So naturally, and he also brought in another Asian connection, saying that genetic predisposition and the ACE polymorphism, which all of us know happens more in the Asian subcontinent. And this is another reason why it's very important that and people should be very careful in the use of ACE inhibitors and ARB in patients with hypertension during COVID times. That was a bit shocking. And the naturally, the proposition was that the ACE2 SARS-CoV-19 viruses uses the ACE2 receptors for entry into lung. And naturally, when it uses that, there is some down regulation. So when you are using an ACE2 or ARB, there is an upregulation of the receptors and more virus entry happens. It could be one of the reasons, or it could be when you have lesser receptors, more angiotensin comes. And angiotensin, we know how does it attacks the lung and other system, the vascular system. So the entry of the SARS viruses in the host using ACE2 receptors. Of course, we realized later that every entry of the virus is not related to ACE2 receptors. And some funny named TMPRS, some protease. No, it's some protease, and that is needed to gain entry into the cell. So that was the supposition. ACE ARB, they possibly causes damages by this upregulation of the receptors, more virus entry, and you have a higher mortality and morbidity in patients who are treated with ACE or ACE inhibitors and ARB. So naturally, the debate continued when one group saying that one should not be, it causes myocardial lung inflammation and more apoptosis. Naturally, now you have more activity by the angiotensin, angiotensin 2. And on the other hand, we have also supporters of the wisdom saying that, well, what you are saying is not correct. We have to continue the usage of ACE inhibitors and ARB because we have to prevent. We have more heart failure happening during COVID time. We have more MIs happening, and all these patients, if you discontinue your ACE ARB, they are going to suffer quite a lot, and abrupt discontinuation of ACE ARB is going to create more problems. So that is why the scientific debate, see, this was caught on naturally. This was again a paper from China which showed a data saying that those who used ACE ARB had a higher mortality. So naturally, public went berserk, and this is one guy called Sam Blanchard. He's a health reporter from United States, and he sort of cautioned everyone, saying that, see, more than 6.6 million people with hypertension are on ACE ARB, and you're going to kill this patient by prescribing ACE ARB, because we have a scientific data showing ACE ARB causes more infiltration of the virus into the lung and vasculature and causes more mortality. And naturally, and we in India also, we don't have a dearth of all this misinformation. You have the all the social media being used for misinformation campaign. We have seen a lot of misinformation campaigns happening in India.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, everyone.
There is no communication.
So there must be a technical glitch from Kolkata, so they are rectifying it. It will be done in 2 minutes.
Do we stay on or we leave and join again?
No, sir. Please stay on. Please stay on.
the great trials also has shown. So we can, but only thing is, in a larger subset of patients like elderly patients and other priority patients, other comorbidity patients, one has to be careful. I will definitely want my patient to have the lowest blood pressure. And if I can keep it around 120/80, I'll be the happiest man. But I will positively make it less than 138.
I think it's absolutely right that as per the guideline, below 130/80 is enough. But if it is possible, if it is tolerated well with the number of drugs or with the dosage of the drugs, we can bring it down to 120/80. It's a absolute right conjecture. And Dr. Goswami, he's the another chairperson. Do you have any comment or question?
I've just joined it because I'm struggling for
Unmute yourself.
since like 30
Unmute
minutes.
yourself.
Are you hearing me?
Unmute. We are not listening you, Dr. Goswami.
I'm telling I just joined it because I was struggling. There is no link. So I don't know what, what was the speech or anything. Are
Okay.
you hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Do you have any comments regarding the management of hypertension in COVID scenario? Just pass it to the listeners who are watching this seminar.
I don't know how much listeners is watching. There was no connection till 1 minute ago. I have no idea how much. I didn't hear what was
This
Mohan
is a
was
good
telling.
number. We are watching the number. It's a good number.
Uh-huh.
Actually,
Actually, I agree with Mohan to keep it below 130 to 80. But
Yeah.
we should be careful when we are bringing in hypertensive patient below 130 to 80. There may be some giddiness or something. If the person tolerate, then it will be okay.
Okay. That's very nice. That's very nice.
Otherwise, when the person is hypertensive, they are usually physiologically there's a little bit of acclimatize on higher side. If you drop below 130 or 80, sometimes they feel giddiness. If it is below one, if it's in between 110 or 20, they're definitely not comfortable. This is my experience. I don't know.
Yes, that's a very right suggestion. Yes, Doctor.
A very
Goswami.
important message, because what we cardiologists always say the patient, bring your blood pressure to 120/80, because we are theoretical person, we just need a recommendation. We never see the situation prevailing in the India. In West Bengal, in Northeast, if somebody say my blood pressure is 120/80 and I'm not measuring blood pressure once monthly, there's two extreme seasons. When you sweat, it is just like a 40 milligram of Lasix per day. So in a humid environment, please see the patient first before bringing the blood pressure to 120/80. Because invariably in summer, the blood pressure rises. You always increase the dose. Then the blood pressure at March or February, March is 120/80. In a summer, you never measure it. And as May, June approach, the blood pressure become 100/10, 100/70, and the patient has, in many older patients, what we have seen is a postural drop. So if you are bringing blood pressure to 120/80, we have extreme variation in our weather. So tell patient, buy an automatic BP instrument and measure at home practically every Sunday morning. If your blood pressure is coming down, decrease the dose. So the variation in our setup is not as Western guideline, because in Western country, practically there is no extreme summer. So this caution is very, very important, especially when you are living in a humid and warm circumstances. That is my.
Yeah.
Dr.
It's
Manal,
absolutely right comment. Dr. Rakesh Jadhav has said that ours is a country which is very humid one, and there are extremes of variations in the temperature in the summer versus the winter. In fact, in the winter, the blood pressure increases, and in the summer decreases. So you'll have to take care definitely in terms of using the diuretics and various other drugs to avoid the postural hypertension, especially during summer when a lot of sweating occurs. So, Dr.
Dr.
Yes,
Manal,
Dr. Manal, yeah, please.
Dr. Manal,
I have some comments. what about Rakesh said, that this to extreme variation of the environment. My wife is in severely hypertensive, actually grade 3 hypertensive. And she always, and her blood pressure always shoots up during winter. During summer, it comes down. We can jolly well understand that what may be the mechanism for vasodilation and lot of electrolyte loss that gives rise to this. It is better, what Rakesh said, that it is better to measure blood pressure at least in home environment once in a week, number one. And number two is, why not 120/80? After publication of the sprint results, we know that there is definite improvement with 120/80 blood pressure in a particular environment. And number 3 point is age. Age is a factor. The same person, 40 years age, hypertensive is different, behaves differently. A person 80 years age, hypertensive behaves differently. There the postural hypotension, falls, and all these things are more important. And whenever a person is suffering from hypertensive at age 40, there is no such complaints as so. We have a long experience in dealing with hypertensives. Each one of us probably, this is my viewpoint in regarding management of hypertension.
Yeah, Dr. Mohanan will go.
Manal, I want to make one comment.
I do agree on the, that's what the ESC also suggested. Keep it less than 130/80 if it is possible, but then that is an important question. When it is possible and when it is not possible, which the physician has to understand. So I tell my clinician friend, don't sprint to the sprint level. See, people are very, very eager to bring it down to 120/80, 110/80. Don't do that in everyone. As we said, elderly, frail group, diabetic with multivascular disease. So there are a large group of people where you cannot achieve that. So try to reduce it definitely less than 130/80. I think Dr. Goswami wanted to say something.
The same thing, Dr. Mohanan, you are telling that we should be very careful in adultery, because once we drop the blood pressure systolic 130, it may be intra-arterial 110 or 115, and they used to feel giddiness or something. So we should be very careful in the 70s, 80s, the bringing to 130. That is not ideal for them, because what we are measuring, it is just a little bit of higher as compared to intra-arterial. Second comment is, most of our physician colleagues using Natrelix. We should be very careful. Natrelix is very often a drug causing hypokalemia as well as hypotension. So this is my little bit suggestion to them.
Yeah, one question from one of the listeners actually has come for Dr. Mohanan. Is Dr. Subhash Khosla from Ludhiana. Any new drug besides ARB, calcium channel blocker, diuretics, beta blocker, aldactone, eplerenone, and all for resistant hypertension?
Conventionally, you go by the, whenever you get a resistant hypertension, of course, the definition itself means we have already used 3 drugs, and most of the time it could be controlled by the 4th drug. Which is the 4th drug? Obviously, the aldosterone antagonist is your 4th drug. There are many, and as the 5th drug, I most of the time opt a beta blocker, most of the time, because even otherwise, I bring the big blocker a little earlier if there are other, because naturally it has to be there in all compelling syndication. But even if there is no compelling indication, I will tend to use a beta blocker, the newer generation, not the older generation of beta blocker. There are number of drugs like now, newer calcium channel blockers coming, newer other agents, the centrally acting drugs coming. Unfortunately, what has happened is we don't have serious outcome data on many of these drugs which claim superiority over the so-called amlodipine. Now we have at least 5 or 6 dipines available which claim to be more potent and more receptor blockers, but I am a little hesitant to use them because of there are no outcome data.
Yeah, absolutely right. So far the newer drugs are concerned, there are not many drugs. There are so many on pipeline, including vaccination against hypertension, also ARB, AC receptors blockers, not blockers actually, vaccination against AC receptors. So there are many drugs, but what is most important message from the resistant hypertension point of view, that is usually not resistant hypertension, but it is the either physician's inertia or clinical inertia regarding the control of hypertension. Most of the time, the patient's inertia is also responsible for controlling the blood pressure, either for failure of taking the medication rightly in the right dose. Sometimes they manipulate. Sometimes the doctors are also reluctant to use the drug. And as we know that the frequency of the visit to the doctors by the patients themselves also might compromise with the control of the BP. So there are many things which are there which should actually highlight about the resistance regarding the hypertension management. And if they are taken care of, many a time, many drugs or combination of drugs are really helpful to take care of the resistant hypertension. Newer drugs are not required. Definitely, Dr. Mohanan has said that the central agonist drug, like the moxinidine and all this, they have come up and they are being used sometime, but the outcome data is very poor. Now, with this particular point, I would just request Dr. Mohanan to comment on single polypill concept in the prevention of hypertension, as well as the real control of hypertension in the the secondary phase, that is both primary and secondary care for hypertension.
Even ARNI is now being touted as an agent useful in resistant hypertension. So many things are going to happen. I mean, as you said, the concept of a polypill is very much there. You mentioned about the importance of adherence and compliance and resistant hypertension. So the only way by which possibly we can, that is why even the European Society has been very, very forthright in arguing for a single pill, which will possibly improve the adherence and improve the compliance, and so that people continue it. So the concept is definitely there. The polypill in primary prevention is a little ticklish wicket. Secondary prevention, all of us have been using it. We have sufficient data. The last data was the poly-Iran data, which we have, there is no, I mean, partly it was a primary prevention trial also. So in primary prevention, I think we have the TIPS 3 data, which we are also part of, which showed that it could be. Only thing is, one has to be careful in picking out the right composition of the polypill. The major problem has been in the criticism against polypill has been, what is the best composition of the polypill, which nobody has found out. See, people are even thinking of trying polypill in heart failure. Now, you have a combination of beta blocker or ARNI or a eplerenone or so the concept of polypill will definitely be more prevalent in cardiology practice.
Yeah, that's right. We'll have to research more on this single polypill combination therapy in hypertension, because that is the only way by which we can reduce the target organ damage in the majority of patients. And in fact, I always tell everyone that had we been able to control the BP adequately, possibly we could have lowered the mortality of the COVID also, because they are having, COVID is having high mortality in hospitalized patients who are having hypertension and cardiovascular illness. And as you know that the hypertension is the major cause of target organ damages. So for the hypertension is concerned. Now, any question from the other members? Any question? Dr. Katyal, then Dr. Narayan.
So I think I agree with most of what has been said, and from my point of view, I would stick to 130 by 80 and be very careful below that value. And but if I can get to 120, 80, I think I'll be happy. But the amount of benefit between 130, 80 and 140, 90 would be quite large. But the benefit between 120, 80 and 130 by 80 would be rather, small. So I wouldn't be very keen sort of trying to get it down. So that is my take. And I agree with the newer calcium channel blockers which are available. It is not difficult to get these values really down. So wonderful talk, and I agree with what has been said.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Narayan. Any more question or comments?
One question from me.
Yes.
So,
Dr.
very
Goel,
nice
please.
talk about the hypertension control and the effects of ACE inhibitors in ARBs. One important point is that white coat hypertension is a very common entity which is always neglected. And I don't know that these patients are over-treated or not. But what I feel that more and more patients should go for ambulatory BP pulse monitoring and should decide the actual doses of antihypertensive.
Absolutely. We should use more and more about the facility of ambulatory BP monitoring, and that will take care of the white coat hypertension or even masked hypertension, and we'll be able to adjust the dose as well as the frequency of visit and everything accordingly. And this will be a very, very important issue. We'll have to address that, and these will be addressed later on in our in the annual conference and all. And yes, Dr. Siddiqui, I have invited him on behalf of Dr. Siddiqui, who was the past president and also the president, executive president of APSC. And I requested his son to be present here to have the memento on his behalf. Any comment, Dr. Siddiqui?
Thank you. My just one question that we have been using AC inhibitor and ARB. It is our main drug, frankly speaking. But to be honest, in 2018 also in New England Journal of Medicine, there was some controversy with the AC inhibitors regarding the lung cancer. I just want to say we cannot wipe it out, because even in my personal experience, I've came across many patients who have been post-tented. I found them that they were having some lung cancers were detected. So I just want to say we cannot throw it out. I just want to ask, if a patient, new onset hypertensive with COVID positive, along with slight patchy infiltration you can see. So will you, should we use AC inhibitor to those patients, or we have got many other drugs? Or should we think, means he has got no other comorbidities, nothing, but you see just new onset hypertension along with some patchy infiltration in the lung. So what should we go for the CCBs, or we will think about the protection of the heart and kidney and all those stuff? Just
In fact, now in the larger subsets of patients where they found that the CT proven infiltrative disease, they found that there is no difference in the usage of any of the antihypertensives. So continue with, the only thing is usage of your diuretic drugs, you may have to be careful. But you don't need to be worried about ACE inhibitors or ARB or CCB. There is no definite recommendation that you give in COVID, use CCB, no. Over you are already hypertensive, and as you know, hypertensive has multivascular disease, many of the time other associated comorbidities. So if the patient benefits in his ARB, let him get that. I agree that our proportion of patients who develops cough with ACE inhibitors are higher. You use a sartan. Now ARB is equally found to be useful, and it shares the same benefits, or if not more. Now, if it is Frank Massarelli, he will say that I will use a sartan than ACE inhibitors.
Yeah, any comment or suggestion, question?
Just a little comment, Dr. Das.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we were having a discussion with Dr. Ram yesterday, and I was very impressed with his view. He said that we should do away with staging of hypertension. We have to treat hypertension, get it down to 130, 80 or even lower. So why talk about stages? Just say hypertension is to be treated above 130, 80.
Okay.
And between 130, 80, 140, 90, of course, you should give an adequate chance for lifestyle modifications before jumping to a drug treatment, unless there is some target organ involvement. And above that, obviously, you have to start with drug. So I was impressed with his view that, it's time that we sort of done away with staging.
I will not
What
say
you have
anything
to say.
against Professor Ram because he is a guru pandit of hypertension. But then possibly the concept of staging came earlier. If you remember our step care, that was the time when we possibly, sort of closely, related with the staging. That was the time. Now, as you said, we are not using any step care therapy, even though, if you remember the International Society guidelines, as another sort of classification. See, so I think the classifications are mainly, it should be useful for us clinicians to implement. Staging has some advantage, I will say. If you remember, SCCHA has done away with staging. It is the ESC which is only staging it in stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. The SCCHA, you don't see that. So maybe we are going into that stage where we will do away with that.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Regarding the staging, we are not very much worried right now, but definitely the level of BP that should be taken into account while controlling the target organ damage. The one more question is there from Rachi, Dr. Arun Kumar has put. Are there any warning signs for admission of a COVID-19 patient with hypertension? Are there really any warning signs?
I'm not a COVID expert. Anybody in a COVID expert here? I don't know. I don't know about, I don't treat COVID. So I have no idea when COVID, just because he is hypertensive, I will not admit him. Unless he has a hypertensive complication, there is not an indication. Of course, main reason why COVID patient get admitted is because of hypoxemia rather than hypertension.
Yeah, but one has to be sort of very careful about blood pressure in COVID, because every COVID patient should be thoroughly screened for hypertension. Because if he is hypertensive, then the mortality of COVID goes up. So I think hypertension should be very seriously looked in a COVID patient.
But I don't think hypertension
Dr.
is
Das,
one
I
of
want
the
to make a
comorbid
comment.
factors or risk factors for COVID. It has been totally ruled out, I believe.
Dr. Das, I want to make a
Hypertension
comment
is not
regarding
considered to be one
COVID.
of the risk factors.
Dr. Das,
Yes.
I want to make a comment regarding COVID and hypertension. I think
last question, because we will be ending the program within another 2 minutes, or you can put a comment rather than question.
No, it's not a comment, it's a comment. We have now a lot of experience in managing COVID with hypertension. And I think we have continued to use ACE and ARB in all of them. And if a patient has COVID and hypertension, we are not as afraid as we are afraid if there is a coronary artery disease or diabetes mellitus associated with COVID. So I think most of the time patients are in the ICU who have acute hypoxic failure. And we had continued to use ACE and ARB in most of them. And most of them have come out also with the therapy which is given to them. So I think very rightly said by Dr. Mohan, the management has to come out, and the management has to be the blood pressure control up to 130/80. And the most important part is that the correct recording and correct recording device also has to be there in most of these patients.
Thank you very much. Every good thing has to end. We had a very, very informative seminar today, along with the erudite discussions from very, very learned people like our executive members. And I thank once again our President-elect and Chairman Scientific Committee CSI 2020 from the core of my heart for accepting my invitation to give a lecture at the last moment, actually, because of some problem. We assigned it to someone else, but Dr. Mohan accepted that. And really, I thank him. And he has clearly indicated about the management of hypertension in COVID scenario. With these few words, I thank everyone, Dr. Mohan, our co-chairperson, Dr. K.C. Goswami, then all the participants, including the EC members and other members of CSI, and also those who have joined. And also I thank really the Ipca Pharmaceuticals for giving this academic support unrestrictedly, and also the ITC Royal Bengal for giving us the platform to use this in a very, very useful manner. And Raghu of Class Club, who has beautifully organized this hybrid meeting. In fact, we were thinking whether we'll be able to conduct it or not in the proper way, but I am sure that hybrid conference or hybrid meetings are a reality. We are present here and some people are outside the halls and they are also participating effectively. And really, I congratulate everyone for this successful meeting. And with this, I end and thanks all to the members and everyone for joining this meeting. Thank you all. Now, we have got another thing. Now we are cutting off from the main Facebook or webinars. Raghu, are we off? Now,
Dr. Das?
will remain. EC will remain. The reason is we have got a few sort of presentations to be made. First first physically, those who are present here, and then definitely those who are there on the virtual platform. We have the presentations, and we'll send the presentations to all of them in due course of time. They are already there, but I have not brought them here right in the meeting because that will create problem for us actually. So with these few words, actually, I offer my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Mohanan, please, and Dr. Mohanan. So this is a presentation. Then I request our the Vice President, Dr. Amal Khan, please. Thank you very much. Then Dr. Rakesh Yadav, Editor, Indian Heart Journal. Thank you very much. Then I request our Honorary General Secretary, Dr. Mondal, Manoranjan Mondal. Then I request Dr. Hasija. Thank you very much. Dr. Kane Siddiqui, he himself is a cardiologist and really is a bright cardiologist and a research-oriented person. I requested him personally to be present on behalf of Dr. Siddiqui, who was the past president, as I told to you. Please, Dr. Siddiqui, this is from the president of CSI. Thank you very much. Then Dr. Goel, please. Dr. Goel, who is the executive committee member of CSI. Thank you very much. Dr. Bishwajit Majumdar, who is the assistant secretary of CSI. Thank you very much. Dr. Debabrata Rai, treasurer, honorary treasurer. Thank you very much. Now I request again, Dr. Rakesh Yadav, could you come? I am taking the chance over here to present to Dr. K.C. Goswami. He is the past president of, immediate past president of CSI. Thank you, Dr. Goswami.
Thank you, Mandal. I'm here.
And I'll be sending the presentations to all other members in due course of time. And I really thank all of you. You could not be present because of the extraordinary situation here physically, but definitely I'll expect that you will be present in with your full strength in the annual conference of CSI. Thank you all. Namaskar and happy festival season.
Thank you, Dr. Das. Wonderful meeting. Look forward.
Thank you.
See you virtually tomorrow.
Great
Bye.
meeting.
Thank you so much.